Right, good evening everyone, it's Anthony Carpin here on the 4th of January 2023. I never kind of really thought I'd ever get to this point when I was in my teens, because I spent part of the afternoon actually going through some very old newspapers, both from 1968 and also from 1996, and it's just really weird seeing things that in a way, certainly on the latter, kind of still feel like yesterday. And interesting to see some articles about a potential new large concert hall that were being discussed in 1996 that obviously never came to fruition. So we're doing that all over again. Anyway, this video is about a meeting that's coming up on Tuesday, the 17th of January. It's going to be at the Guildhall, and it's going to be with the unglamorous title of Planning and Transport Scrutiny Committee. But actually they're going to be discussing some very, very important things, and it's all to do with the future of Cambridge. The two main things that we're really concerned about are the first one is the water crisis, and the papers for that meeting, which have just been published, basically states that ministers, the Environment Agency, Ofwat, the water companies and Water Resources East are not working hard enough or fast enough to ensure that there will be enough water supplies to provide for the new homes that developers will want to build from 2031 onwards. So we've kind of got this impasse. And I have no idea what they're going to do, because at the moment the reservoir plans that they've got won't come on stream until probably 2035 at the earliest. So it remains to be seen what they do, and that's not just for the houses. It's also for the science and tech parks that are proposed. And if I think off the top of my head, the ones that we've got the Peterhouse one, which was basically refused by the Joint Committee of South Cambridgeshire and Cambridge City Council's Planning Committee, but it was overturned by a planning inspector on behalf of the Secretary of State. So that one's gone ahead. We've got new proposals coming in from the Melbourne Science Park, which is going to significantly increase, probably going to treble the amount of floor space that's going to be there. So that will need its own extra resources alongside all of the jobs that are going to come in, which will increase demand for housing, in particular on Royston. Then we've also got the news about the Grafton Centre and their proposals that have come out, which will turn, if it goes through, about two-thirds of the shopping centre into science and office space. You've then got the Beehive Centre redevelopment proposals, which again we've got some idea of now. Some really big buildings that they've got proposed, and I had a look at them and I was just like, okay, that's going to significantly change things. And they're looking at 5,000 jobs. Now, bearing in mind, many of these are going to be highly skilled, highly specialised, talking beyond degree level. So inevitably, that's going to mean people having to come into the area to fill those jobs. So where are the houses going to come from? Where are the water resources and the environmental resources and the electricity going to come from? All of these things that they've got to consider, which is one of the reasons why, for me, how you retrofit a city for a climate emergency is actually a very serious issue that ministers really need to ensure that local councils have both the legal powers and the financial resources to actually deal with. Because at the moment, as you can see with this chaos in Whitehall and Westminster, nothing's happening. We've also got another proposal which is just off Coldham's Lane, funnily enough, where there used to be a municipal tip before the days when there were real regulations, so nobody really knows kind of what was thrown into what was the cement works between Romsey and Cherry Hinton. A new multinational developer or company has acquired that site, and they want to build a new science park there, which kind of reflects the speculative bubble that we are currently going through. And for me, in the grand scheme of things, if ministers are going to insist on just allowing this to kind of let rip, then they need to be providing the resources and the powers to ensure that they've got enough infrastructure there to get people into and out of those areas. And at the moment, we don't have them. So that's one of the reasons why this meeting coming up is kind of ever so important, because also this will be the first real test, if I can put it that way, of what the assumptions are post the publication of the 2021 census results and the high-level figures, which show that Cambridge's population is now over 145,000, or it was over 145,000 as of 2021, so it's going to be even bigger now. And so are those figures going to need to be refreshed? Is that growth unsustainable? And so, given the scale and complexity of the issues, because they also include in those meeting papers questions about transport infrastructure, it needs more of us to actually get involved and taking different bits and scrutinising different bits. And I think this is really what this video is urging those of you interested in these things to do. One of the interesting things that I noticed actually with the paper on transport is it lists a series of schemes where they say, rather than going through a kind of a traditional planning process at a local level, it will go through a system or a process under the Transport and Works Act 1992, which basically means instead of going through a local process, it goes through a national process where the final sign-off is taken by the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State responsible for whichever area, so for transport schemes it will be the Transport Secretary. But what this means is that the Minister, as things currently stand, and as proposed by the timetable, will be a Conservative minister signing off some very potentially controversial transport schemes that their local political parties and local members of Parliament have real issues with. But because the Transport Secretary in this case has to act in a quasi-judicial capacity, he or she, whoever the minister will be at the time, given the turmoil, cannot say, oh, my chum who happens to be the local member of Parliament has opposed it, so therefore I'm going to refuse it because it might mean that my party will do well at the next local elections. That leaves the minister open to legal challenge, and we've seen previous examples of where such partisan behaviour has been overturned by the High Court through judicial review process. So how the local political parties resolve that one in the run-up to a whole series of elections coming up will be more than interesting to see, because it's only 4 months until the local elections in May of 2023. So we will see 1/3 of councillors at Cambridge City Council standing up for re-election, and then the full councils for Fenland District Council and East Cambs District Council. So watch out for those two, because this was a previously safe as houses Conservative county with the exception of Cambridge City, and it could be the case that the Tories, certainly in East Cambs, find themselves in opposition there. Fenland, it remains to be seen whether any of the established political parties can basically make their presence felt in an area where Labour don't have a single councillor. There's also the issue of Peterborough City Council, which is really struggling financially. Minority Conservative leadership there. It will be interesting to see when they have 1/3 of their councillors up for election in 4 months' time, to see how things turn out there, because Labour in particular have selected quite a highly regarded individual candidate for Peterborough, and this is Andrew Pakes, and he has certainly been active out and about and has certainly been publicising what he's been doing on social media. So it'll be interesting to see what effect or what impact he has had over the last year, comparing what will be 2023's results with 2022's results. So we live in interesting times. Thank you for listening.